Hello, my name's David Formhalls, and I'm a presidential candidate. And I believe in legal immigration, all these people overseas that are yearning to be free. And I believe that you can pump water uphill using gravity. If president, I like to build a downhill thing from Lake Michigan out into Arizona where you let water, you'd use gravity to pump water uphill and then let it flow downhill from Lake Michigan out into the Phoenix, below Phoenix, Arizona, and then bring these people like the Mexicans that are yearning for America and from these countries overseas, that you could have a gated community. Just because you're becoming an American don't mean you'd have the right to carry an arm. You could have that in being a citizen. You might have it written in there where your new citizen might have limitations on what kind of weapon you could carry. Okay, now, when you get in a fight, I've repeated this many times, when you get in a fight, you do anything you have to do to defend yourself. Before World War II, the world was more or less broke. They didn't have a lot of money, and they started out at zero, and they went farther into debt, and then when they did this, they seen that they had money. Going into debt, they seen that they had money, and then when they paid this debt off, they didn't have any money. After they paid the debt, they didn't have any money. Okay, they had a Department of War. I want to have a Department of Peace where we spend just as much money with the Department of Peace as we do with the Department of War. Okay, that's like back during World War II, they spent wages for the World War II time. I want to spend wages for like 2050. It may be $100 an hour for the year 2050. That may be $100 an hour where McDonald's will get 40% of $100 an hour and the person working at McDonald's gets 60% of $100 an hour. That may be fair. During a war, the government pays a person to fight the war, so the government pay people to go into McDonald's and work at McDonald's, and the government pay McDonald's for the people to work at McDonald's. That may seem odd, but that's just the way I'm going to do it. Okay, that's just one of the things I'm going to do different. Now, in this canal, if you go to clean energy, you'll see my idea. I say running it in water, but you'd run it in air. There'd be 2 sets of 20 things tall, round containers, each containing 1,000 cubic foot of air, and the weight of the oil would make the difference. If you have 1,000,000 pounds of weight of oil, that's like if the air displaced 1,000,000 pounds of oil, you'd have the equivalent of 1,000,000 pounds of air going up. If the difference in between the air and the oil was 1,000,000 pounds, in each one of these operations you have 2 sets, one on one side and one on the other, with rings around it. That's like just to describe it, you have rings around it where the oil can't get under one side and it can't get under the other. When the oil gets under one side, the air goes up, and when it goes up, it pulls the air down on the other where the oil can't get under it. And when the air goes up, you get energy out of this rising air. You have stacks of 20, each one having 1,000 cubic foot, and you have 3 or 4 stacks that you don't use for anything other than just friction and other things that you may have 20, 23 or 4 of these in here in stacks, but you use 3 or 4 for friction and other things that may be needed. Now, in between Phoenix, Arizona and Lake Michigan is 2,000 miles. If you split this up into 25 sections, you'd have 80 sections. And in 80 sections, you'd have 25 different, you'd have 25 areas. So, you'd have 25 areas. So if each 25 area, that'd give you about a 12-mile section where you dig down and you push dirt on each side, like let's say a mile or so section. You dig down into the ground, let's say 100 foot, and push dirt up, maybe 100 foot deep, and line it with plastic. And you line it with plastic, and so the water wouldn't leak through. And then go up and put posts up with ironwork, so if it froze up, the snow and stuff would teeter-totter and fall down through it. With ironwork and concrete work down through it. And I don't know whether my idea will work, but it'd have to be worked out, but I think it'll work out. But anyways, you dig a ditch every 12 miles or so. You'd pump water back uphill, and then let it flow downhill again with a lined ditch with a roof on it so it didn't evaporate. You'd have to have a roof on it so it didn't evaporate. And then have it so when it snowed, heavy snowfall, it would teeter and fall back down into the ditch. And have, I don't know, to get it uphill, you'd either have to have it with ice on it and pump it underground, or have I don't know how you'd pump it up over the top, but there's engineers that could figure it out. You may have to have like a dredge line or something. Well, it wouldn't be a dredge line, but there'd be a way you could use an underground pump and pump it below the ice line and pump it up into the next level. And for every 12 mile, you'd have a series of these tanks that would pump it up to the next level, and then you'd flow downhill again to the next 12 mile, and you'd have in 2,000 mile, you'd have about 25 of these, or in 2,000 mile, you'd have 80 of these, I think. But if you had them every 4 mile, if you did this every 4 mile, in 2,000 mile, you'd have 500 of them. If you did it 4 miles at a time and let it drain downhill, and did it 4 mile and let it drain downhill, and did it 4 mile and let it drain downhill, you'd have 500 operations. You got enough people over there that they could dig a ditch, and then once they got out there, you'd have a gated community. You'd have a camera on each corner. They could build their own community. They're yearning to be free. That's not freedom, but it's better than getting your head shut off. They could build a nice community. There's not much building material, but I've heard. And that's like, I've watched the thing on here, did our forefathers smoke marijuana back when they were doing sailing ship? It took 395 acres of hemp to build enough sailcloth to make a sailing ship. You could take hemp and build a building out of it. They could grow hemp out there and make their buildings out of hemp. It's no big crime if you do it right. You can't smoke it. If you do it right, it's a male plant, and they could build their buildings out of hemp with concrete, and it'd be no big crime. And they could build their buildings out of hemp. I don't think it'd burn. They could build their buildings out of hemp. They could use my idea to generate electricity for their power and air condition their houses. And they could go out in the ocean and distill water out in the Gulf of Mexico and pipe it in for their drinking water. And I got 10 minutes. That's about the limit what I can record and get it online. But I think you could get water to flow downhill from Lake Michigan, and the Mexicans could go in there, and all them people in them foreign countries that are yearning to be free could go over here. It may have to be a limited freedom until they can get their rights. Thank you, David Formos, presidential candidate. You can look up my idea on perpetual energy or clean energy, DAVIDFORMHALS, and I thank you very much.